In 1974, a farmer digging for water made a discovery that would rewrite history. His shovel struck something hard. Not rock, not clay, a face. A human face, staring back at him from beneath 2,000 years of earth. What he'd found was just one soldier. One of 8,000. An entire army, frozen in time, guarding the tomb of China's most powerful and most paranoid emperor. A man so obsessed with living forever that he built an underground kingdom for his afterlife. A man who unified China through blood and brutality, then spent his final years desperately searching for immortality. But here's what's truly terrifying. We still haven't opened his tomb. And some archaeologists think that we never should. This is the story of the Terracotta Army. And trust me, it's darker than you think. March 1974, Xiang Village, Shaanxi Province, China. The country was still recovering from the Cultural Revolution. Farmers were struggling with a severe drought, desperately digging wells to find water. Yang Jifa and his neighbors were digging in a field that locals had always considered unlucky. Old stories talked about strange pottery shards and a tile man that had been found there decades before. Yang's shovel broke through into a hollow space. Then he saw it, a clay figure, perfectly preserved, staring up at him with an expression that seemed almost alive. They kept digging. More heads, torsos, arms, all terracotta, all life-sized. The farmers had no idea what they'd found. They reported it to local authorities, who initially thought it might be an old kiln or pottery workshop. But when archaeologists arrived and began proper excavation, they realized this wasn't just an archaeological site. It was one of the most significant discoveries of the 20th century. Beneath that field lay 3 massive pits, ancient underground vaults, containing over 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers, 670 horses, 130 chariots, and countless weapons, all arranged in battle formation, all facing east, all waiting for orders from their emperor. An emperor who had been dead for 2,200 years. To understand this army, you need to understand the man who built it, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China. Born Ying Zheng in 259 BC, he became king of the Qin state at just 13 years old. But he didn't want to be a king. He wanted to be the emperor, the ruler of all China. For centuries, China had been fractured into warring states, constantly fighting for dominance. Ying Zheng spent 26 years conquering them all. One by one, the kingdoms fell. His methods were ruthless mass executions, burning of books, burying scholars alive who opposed him. In 221 BC, at age 38, he achieved what no one before him had. He unified China. He declared himself Qin Shi Huang, which means First Emperor of Qin. He standardized currency, measurements, writing systems, and laws across his entire empire. He connected and extended walls in the north to create the early version of the Great Wall. He built roads and canals. He transformed China from a collection of warring states into a centralized empire, a model of governance that would last for over 2,000 years. But there was one thing his power couldn't give him: immortality. As he aged, Qin Shi Huang became obsessed with death. He sent expeditions to find the legendary elixir of immortality. He consulted alchemists and mystics. He consumed mercury pills, believing they would make him immortal. Spoiler alert, they didn't. In fact, they probably killed him. But before his death, he began preparing for the only kind of immortality he could control his legacy. And that meant building a tomb unlike anything the world had ever seen. Construction of Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum began when he took the throne at 13. It took 38 years and over 700,000 workers to complete. The Terracotta Army wasn't just art, it was ancient industrial engineering. Every single warrior is unique. Different facial features, different expressions, different hairstyles, mustaches, and armor styles. Archaeologists believe they were modeled after real soldiers from the Emperor's army. But here's what's incredible. They weren't made by artists sculpting each one individually. That would have been impossible. Ancient Chinese craftsmen used an assembly line production system 2,000 years before Henry Ford. Bodies were made in standardized sections: legs, torsos, arms, heads. These pieces were manufactured in molds, then assembled. The heads were individually crafted and attached last, giving each warrior its unique identity. The weapons were just as impressive: bronze swords, spears, crossbows, and arrows. Thousands of them. In 1994, archaeologists found a bronze sword that had been buried for over 2,000 years. When they pulled it from the ground, it was still sharp, still straight. Analysis revealed the weapons had been coated with chromium oxide, an anti-rust technology that the West wouldn't discover until the 1,932nd. Originally, these warriors weren't gray. They were painted in bright, vivid colors: reds, greens, purples, pinks. Each soldier was a work of art, but when exposed to air after excavation, the paint began flaking off within minutes. Archaeologists now leave newly discovered warriors in place until preservation technology improves. The level of detail, the scale, the technology, it's almost unbelievable. But remember, this entire army was just the outside of the tomb. The real tomb, the Emperor's burial chamber, we haven't touched it. About a mile from the Terracotta Army pits, there's a massive earthen mound 247 feet tall, shaped like a pyramid. This is the actual tomb of Qin Shi Huang, and it has never been opened. Why? According to ancient historian Sima Qian, writing a century after the emperor's death, the tomb is designed to kill anyone who enters. His description sounds like something from an Indiana Jones movie. Rivers of mercury flowing mechanically to represent China's rivers, a ceiling decorated with pearls to represent the stars, crossbows rigged to automatically fire at intruders, and treasures beyond imagination. People assumed this was legend, exaggeration, ancient propaganda. But then modern soil tests found something terrifying. Mercury levels around the tomb are 100 times higher than normal. The mercury rivers might actually exist. Ground-penetrating radar has detected a massive underground palace beneath the mound. Walls, chambers, structures, all sealed and untouched for 2,200 years. So why not open it? First, preservation technology still isn't advanced enough. Remember what happened to the paint on the warriors? Exposure to oxygen caused irreversible damage. The tomb might contain silk, wood, paintings, and other organic materials that would disintegrate within hours of exposure. Second, the mercury. If the ancient accounts are true, opening the tomb could release toxic mercury vapor that's been sealed underground for millennia, deadly to the excavation team, and potentially contaminating the entire site. Third, Chinese authorities view the tomb as a national treasure. Opening it now, with current technology, might mean destroying irreplaceable artifacts. The decision is, better to leave it sealed than to damage it forever. Some archaeologists estimate it might be another 50 to 100 years before we have the technology to safely excavate the tomb. But others think we should never open it at all. Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC at age 49, likely from mercury poisoning from those immortality pills. Ironic, right? The thing he thought would make him live forever actually killed him. His dynasty collapsed just 4 years after his death. Everything he built politically seemed to crumble immediately. But his legacy? That lasted for over 2,000 years. The unified China he created became the model for every dynasty that followed. The systems he established, centralized government, standardized writing, unified measurements, formed the foundation of Chinese civilization. And his tomb? His desperate grab at immortality? It actually worked, just not the way he planned. Qin Shi Huang's name is known worldwide. Millions visit his underground army every year. His story has been told and retold for 2,200 years. He achieved immortality not through magic pills or hidden elixirs, but through the very monument he built to house his corpse. Archaeologists estimate they've only excavated about 1% of the entire site. New discoveries are still being made. In recent years, they've found acrobat figures, musicians, and civil officials, suggesting the underground complex was meant to be a complete miniature of the emperor's entire empire. There are still 2 major pits that have barely been touched. Who knows what they contain? More warriors? Treasures? Evidence of technologies we thought didn't exist in ancient China? Every new discovery reshapes our understanding of ancient Chinese civilization, engineering, and art. The Terracotta Army stands as one of humanity's greatest achievements and one of its greatest mysteries. Built by a paranoid emperor who wanted to control death itself. Discovered by accident by a farmer looking for water. Guarding a tomb filled with mercury and secrets that might stay buried forever. 8,000 silent soldiers, standing in formation, waiting for orders that will never come, protecting an emperor who died believing he'd live forever. Maybe he was right. Maybe this is immortality, not living forever, but being remembered forever. Being discovered 2,000 years later by people who will never forget your name. What do you think? Should we open the tomb or leave some mysteries buried? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, hit that subscribe button. We've got more incredible stories coming. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.